Many people love Johann Sebastian Bach's music because of its seriousness and spiritual depth. It is almost inconceivable that the Thomas Cantor could also have had his own unique sense of humor and self-irony. But Bach also loved cryptic messages. And it is precisely in one of his most serious works, the Goldberg Variations, that we find a genuinely funny self-commentary, a masterpiece of satirical wit. This is particularly familiar from the French composer Erik Satie, who liked to write whimsical comments in his piano pieces. In a way, Bach preceded him by 150 years, except that he let the musical text speak for itself. His contemporaries understood the message anyway. Before we lift the veil, we would like to explain what the Goldberg Variations actually are, why they are called Goldberg Variations when they should really be called Kaiserlink Variations, and why they represent a pioneering contribution to music therapy. Bach wrote the variations on a saraband-like aria for two-manual harpsichord, possibly for Hermann von Kaiserlink, a Russian ambassador in Dresden who was a friend of his, supported him intensively, and later became the godfather of one of his grandsons. However, the diplomat, who was obviously highly talented and in demand as a specialist in political negotiations, was in poor health and suffered from insomnia. Playing the variations was intended to make the endless sleepless hours more bearable for him. The task of playing the variations was presumably entrusted to the harpsichord virtuoso Johann Gottlieb Goldberg, who was in Kaiserlink's service and was taught by Bach at the diplomat's instigation. This is how the organist and music historian Johann Nikolaus Forkel, who was born a year before Bach's death, tells the story in his biography of Bach. The Count simply called the work his Variations. He could not get enough of listening to it. For a long time, Forkel continues, when sleepless nights came, the Count would say, "Dear Goldberg, please play me one of my variations." Bach was perhaps never so richly rewarded for any of his works as he was for this one. The Count gave him a gift of a golden cup filled with 100 louis d'or. Today, this would be equivalent to about $50,000. The work did not receive the title Goldberg Variations until the 19th century, based on Forkel's report, which is now disputed and has not been confirmed by other sources. Doubts about its authenticity are raised primarily by the fact that Goldberg was only 13 years old at the time, meaning he would have had to be a true child prodigy to be able to play this complex work. The Goldberg Variations are linked to another special feature of Bach's sources. In 1975, a first edition of the work was found, in which Bach himself had made corrections in red ink, added further ornaments, and made other changes. Attached to the document is a sheet with canons based on the first 8 bars of the bass line of the melody of the Variations. One of these canons can be found on the famous portrait of Bach by Elias Gottlob Hausmann from 1746. But where is Bach's amusing interlude? The 30th and thus last variation before the return to the aria is a so-called quodlibet. This refers to a communal singing in which all participants sing a different, harmoniously fitting song. In his Goldberg quodlibet, Bach layers 2 popular songs of his time on top of each other. I have so long been away from you, come closer, come closer. And cabbage and turnips have driven me away. Had my mother cooked meat, I'd have opted to stay. How were the players supposed to understand these messages? Well, the aria had been hidden for a long time under cabbage and turnips, namely a myriad of ingenious variations. It had been away from us for a long time, but now it was returning at the end of the cycle. This can be understood as a kind of musical pun. But it was not Bach's only way of smuggling messages into his music. Far more significant was the message Bach engraved in his very last work, The Art of Fugue. When he inserted his own name in the form of the sequence BACH, he laid down his pen. The autograph contains a handwritten note by Bach's son Carl Philipp Emanuel. While composing this fugue, he notes, the moment he inserted the name Bach into the counter melody, my father died. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel. At academia-larty.org, you will also find a knowledge database and online courses from our academy. And check out the other videos here on YouTube. Thank you for your interest.